It's only Wednesday, but this is already the most humiliating week for this dangerously incompetent Albanese government. Well, at least since the week last October, when 60% of voters rejected the Prime Minister's racist voice. It got so bad today that Home Affairs Minister Clare today twice literally fled from journalists in Parliament House who were trying to ask her just to explain the latest cock-up. First was this.
Do you expect legal challenges to come out of this legislation if it's passed?
I'm so sorry, I've got to go to a meeting.
This is major legislation. This is major legislation and you're not taking questions on it.
What's your response?
What confidence do you have or what advice do you have that these laws won't get thrown out by the High Court too?
Minister, why did family are desperate? What are your response to concerns about his welfare and treatment?
This is major legislation and you're not taking questions.
Think that's bad? Then there was this, after O'Neill finally did hold a press conference this afternoon on a botched plan to blindside the opposition and ran through new immigration laws.
Yep, we've got to go. We've got to wrap up. Thanks, guys.
Why are you avoiding the question? Why are you hiding the
Total clown show. But let me take you through a week when the wheels really did start to fall off this government and public servants, it seems, started to leak against their ministers. It started yesterday, of course, with what's still the government's biggest disaster, its global warming plans. You had Energy Minister Chris Bowen asking the head of Toyota Australia to back him up at a press conference. Come along and help sell Bowen's new emissions target that will stop car makers from selling so many of the popular four-wheel drives that Bowen thinks are too gassy for the planet. But then a reporter asked the Toyota boss the obvious question, would Bowen's plan still let Toyota sell cars with the same capability and range as current models and for the same price? And the answer, well, of course not.
That does leave a challenge, a significant challenge. It will be difficult. The technology is yet to actually be at an affordable price.
But that was almost nothing compared to what followed. In short, the government is freaked. The government has already been caned for being totally unprepared last year when the High Court ruled it couldn't keep foreign criminals in detention indefinitely if it couldn't send them home. Result, the government released 149 foreign detainees, many of them criminals, without initially having any system to check where they were or to control their movements. Worse, in response to questions from the opposition in the Senate estimates hearing on February 12, the head of O'Neill's department, Stephanie Foster, handed over a document admitting that the released detainees included 7 people convicted of murder or attempted murder, 37 sex offenders and pedophiles, and 72 violent criminals. Now, fast forward to this terrible week. Sky News reporter Olivia Casely today broke the news that O'Neill was so angry with Foster revealing the truth that she tore strips of her, leaving Foster reportedly in tears. There was even no talkies between them reportedly for days. And O'Neill failed to deny this the 4 or 5 or 6 times she was asked in question time about this, what you might call, this bullying or this abuse. Here's a sample.
Can the Minister confirm that she verbally abused the Secretary of her department, causing the Secretary to leave her office in tears?
The Secretary of my department and I have worked together really closely.
Has the Minister apologised to the Secretary of her department following her verbal altercation?
As I've said to the response to the previous question, I work very closely with the Secretary of my department.
And what happened to Labor's promise to be more transparent than the previous lot in government? I mean, why had O'Neill been so angry with the department here for just giving us the facts?
The Minister's office attempted to ensure the department never gave this evidence so that the explosive document would be kept hidden from the Australian public. Minister, is this true?
I'm not sure what the complaint is here because the government was requested information and the information was provided to the opposition and to the public.
Yeah, against your will. Debacle. But believe it or not, even this wasn't the worst for the government today. The Albanese government has been rightly terrified that the High Court could next month rule that it must also free any immigration detainees who could be sent back home but refuse to go. And this applies mostly to Iranians, since Iran won't take back any citizens against their will. O'Neill and Immigration Minister Andrew Giles, the government's Laurel and Hardy Act, came up with a supposed fix to this ahead of the High Court decision. Didn't want to be caught napping again. They dreamed up new legislation to make it a crime for a foreign detainee to refuse to cooperate with being sent home. Maximum penalty, 5 years jail. But they had a cunning twist. Let's not give the opposition any warning, no ammunition. All right, it was all written up last Friday, this legislation, but let's wait till the last minute yesterday morning to show it to the opposition. And that way we will bulldoze it into passing the laws in the House of Representatives. Yesterday, in the Senate today, last day of sittings ahead of the 6 weeks break, all done ahead of the High Court decision. What a joke. As a gotcha, this plan was a complete disaster. The opposition today refused to pass this legislation before Parliament rose for the break, saying it needed a proper Senate inquiry to check for unintended consequences. Would it even work? And the Greens across benches all agreed. And no wonder. The government officials called to brief senators about this bill last night, couldn't explain the rush, couldn't explain how the law even applied to the case that the High Court would rule on. And journalists today asked O'Neill and Giles exactly these questions they couldn't answer. No wonder O'Neill fled that press conference too.
So, Minister, can you spell out what the immediacy is here and what's the implications of not passing this bill today? Because the way we see it, yes, the opposition voted for it in the House of Representatives and now the Senate's asking to do its job.
This is an area where the opposition have continually pressed us on the need to act urgently to ensure the community is kept safe.
Officials last night were not able to explain the connection between the bill and the ASF 17 case.
So I'm not going to comment on High Court matters.
You'd laugh if you didn't know these ministers, along with Workplace Relations Minister Tony Burke, they're all smashing Australia's future. Chris Bowen, destroying our coal-fired electricity system without having anything adequate to replace it. Tony Burke, crippling employers with endless new pro-union laws, and now Giles and O'Neill, cramming our cities and creating a housing crisis, don't forget, by importing 550,000 immigrants in a single year. Watch and weep.